All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. 5 days to go until the Iowa Caucuses, roughly, generally given, give or take. Go check a look at our countdown. You'll see it's about 4 hours and change. Caucuses, though, do start at 7. Be there a half hour early. Don't forget to like the video if you like our videos. Share them far and wide. YouTubers, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. Rumble, you don't have to do that. You will just let you know, shoot you an email. Of course, the best place to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. We are in the field with 5 days left to go, and I will tell you what I see as of right now. I want to say yesterday we spoke, and actually I can tell you for certain right now. We spoke to a little over 800 Iowans since we started the poll so far. I'm going to keep going, though, because it's not just a poll of the Iowa caucuses. It is a general election poll. We'll talk about what we're seeing, how representative the data is as it's coming in. We'll give you some key demographics of and how their vote preferences are coming up on Monday as of right now, and then how people are leaning and who is getting the movement and momentum, not only in initial first choice, but who appears to be winning those who repeatedly tell us they're undecided, which is why I wanted to wait until the end or the final stretch to do this poll. Listen, tomorrow is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. The entire month of January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. It's no secret that whatever good Laura and I try to do, not exactly philanthropists, it usually surrounds children. It sucks to watch children suffer from diseases that you would not wish on grown men and women. It is very tough to watch children suffer from cancers and other ridiculous rare diseases, again, that just appear to be a mistake, in God's design, and how wonderful and brave these children are. That being said, human trafficking is disgusting, and I don't think we talk about it enough at all. And I don't think that I realized how bad it is in this, not only this country, but globally. Although, sadly, this country is we're part of the demand. Other countries obviously do a lot of supplying, but us and others are part of that demand. We are offering a demand for what is the fastest growing industry globally and the second largest organized crime industry behind only drugs. And I want to say it was mid to late 2017, in the Trump administration, I began to talk to people at the Department of Homeland Security who are part of a task force that investigate this stuff. And I'll tell you, folks, when we get people back, the government itself, I would say, is equipped to deal with some of the investigations, and they have rare victories. But there are people out there, largely private people, that do the good work when we do get some of these kids back. And I'm real glad that Street Hope, Tennessee will be with us today to discuss that in a later segment. All right, real quick, we'll do before we get into the polling, not just only ours, but what we see in other polling that has come out in the last couple of days. Let's do a real quick thank you to our sponsors. And of course, Brickhouse Nutrition has been with us for a long time. Fields of Greens, we love them. If you just started a New Year's resolution to be healthier, now's your chance to do it. We set goals, not resolutions. But if yours was to eat healthier this year, that's the easy part, setting that resolution or setting that goal. Actually doing it, not so easy. Better nutrition is a key to health and longevity. And a healthy diet could even help you avoid health risks that run in your family. Field of Greens is my and Laura's and the kids' healthy superfruit and vegetable habit. It's the only fruit and vegetable product that literally promises better health. At your next checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Do your vitamins or green drinks promise better health? Nope. No, they do not. Each superfruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was selected by doctors for a specific health benefit. Some support your heart, your lungs, kidneys. Others support your metabolism for healthy energy and weight loss, which when you get to be my age, you certainly need. Look, if you resolve to get healthier in 2024, it starts with Field of Greens. I got you 15% off your first order and free rush shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com. Link is in the description. The site is up on the screen. That's fieldofgreens.com. And use the promo code TPP for the People's Pundit. That's promo code TPP at fieldofgreens.com. Fieldofgreens.com. Love them. I'll tell you what, I notice a day when I don't take my Field of Greens. And you will too. And by the way, send us your feedback because we love to hear it. A lot of people on Lokes told the same thing. You will notice a loss in benefit if you do not take your Field of Greens. All right. Let me tell you what I think before we get into some of the polls that came out already. All right. Let me tell you, first, there was an Iowa poll. There was 2 so far. I know it's funny. We've interviewed people who were interviewed by and Seltzer, the Seltzer and Company. People were like, oh man, I just did this. And by the way that they explained it, it's Seltzer. So I know she's in the field for NBC. Maybe she wasn't anyway yesterday. I have a feeling that conservatives are getting a little bit tired of being interviewed. All right. So moderates and liberals and more educated people tend to want to take polls at higher rates. We know this is a problem, a real issue, all right, and some of the fake issues that fake people are talking about on fake websites and fake talk shows that are pushing a candidate because they're looking for some diamond in the rough or they're looking for some good news and a slew of bad. We know what the issues are with polling. And, when it's called fatigue. We have population fatigue going on, I think, right now in Iowa, though the response rates are very high. And thank you, AI, for helping with that. The response rates are very high. I can just see that we're certainly, for instance, Iowa's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th congressional district in a general election are largely split 25, 25, 25. Yes, one's a little bit more. The 1st district's 25.6 or 25.8. The 4th congressional district is 23.8, but they're largely split 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. You can see the more conservative and rural areas within these districts. And not only that, but you can see much, much heavier interest and higher response rates in the 1st district, for instance, than you can in the 4th. So it will take, this is why I wanted to get started early, even though I wanted to do this poll right before or as closely to the caucuses as we could, because caucuses are a pain to poll. Right? We're asking people first choice. Obviously, we're saying, look, if the caucus was today, who are you going to support? Who are you going to vote for? And then if they say undecided, we say, look, if you had to today, and we do not let them get off the hook. So we ask, and now we give them a someone else option because you can caucus for anyone. It's going to be a very small percentage that tells us that. It's like a third-party vote share at the end of the day. It's really not going to be substantial or significant. And then, like I said, because of that, we also ask whether or not they can be persuaded if they chose a first choice off the bat. All right. If they didn't and they had to be leaned, then we're not asking them the following question. Only on people who told us they have a first choice. They get, can you be persuaded to change your mind at the caucus? You guys know this question. We've done it now 3 times in 3 other polls. That will be the percentage of people who say, I cannot be persuaded, will be reported as each candidate's core vote share. All right. Even people who have some movement, for instance, there's still not a lot of solid core vote share. So I see the potential for surprises. I do. For instance, I wouldn't be surprised by a number of following scenarios. Vivek Ramaswamy outperforms. Is he going to beat Trump? No. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't look like anybody's going to beat Trump. Nobody's even close to Donald Trump. But the question is by how much? And the question is who comes out. It's going to be cold as can be in Iowa. So, I'm not saying this to keep Trump supporters complacent at all. I'm just simply saying that his polling lead is significant. But Vivek Ramaswamy has something that Donald Trump has. And if they come out, he could outperform. He has himself a nice chunk of I have never attended an Iowa caucus. Online, in the online collection, for instance, that's like 45% of the sample. Okay, what am I saying is there's a lot of people we're speaking to for the general election poll who are not going to caucus. There are it still looks like it could be huge turnout, historic turnout, but still you will see there is a lot of I'm not doing it this year, especially among Democrats. And then there's a lot of independents who are not going to go and shift their registration, and certainly Democrats, they're just not. So they're telling us I'm staying home, but I am going to vote. I am going to vote in the presidential cycle, and I always did. So that's why we really wanted to do a bigger sample, because we know we have that. But there is on the phone component, like phone interviews. I want to say it's like 70-30, something like that. It's a first time caucus goers. 80-20, 70-30, something like that. But online, it's looking like it has been the entire cycle. All right. And for instance, Trump obviously leads. I think in the phone, he's like at 58% of first time caucus goers. Online, he's like 53 or something. I think so. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's the way it goes. Vivek, however, is number 2 in one of the 2 modes. So when all of this gets calibrated and weighted correctly, Vivek is going to have himself a nice chunk of first-time caucus goers. If Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis end up fighting, and look, before I say this, let me caveat with this. Nikki Haley is absolutely surging. She has caught Ron DeSantis in Iowa. The question, however, remains, when you're this close to each other, can Ron DeSantis' organization outperform his polling? And the answer is yes. This is where caucus organization matters. He will need that organization to stop her natural momentum. He used to have a good chunk of people who were like never Trumpers, and now he's splitting them with her. So if they just go out and caucus anyway, and she doesn't have organization, she could still do very well. Happened with Marco Rubio. Donald Trump had no organization. He had no commit to caucus cards, which, by the way, if we have time, we got to talk about, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and people are saying, oh, he's got 60,000 caucus cards. That means polls are telling us, he can't be that low. Commit to caucus cards are not obligations. If somebody signed a commit to caucus card back in April when Ron DeSantis was at 35%, they're not going to caucus for him now. I have to, like, you people think it's a commitment or something. It's not. And a candidate who cratered, there's no other word for it. A candidate who was once way high and then cratered is going to have tens of thousands, if they did the organization, caucus cards that are worthless. We call them wood. I don't know, maybe some of you guys have seen movies, Wall Street and other things. You know what I'm talking about. Wood is when you're making prospect for clients, like campaigns are prospecting for voters, and you're writing up a bunch of crap. And you call the person back, they're not serious, they're not going to buy a damn thing. You're never going to get their account. You're never going to manage their money. It was a waste of a freaking index card. It's wood. A campaign like Ron DeSantis is likely to have a lot of wood. Garbage. Somebody was gung-ho for them 4 months ago until he made a comment. Until they realized, no, I'm going with Vivek, or I'm going with Trump, or I'm going with Haley. That's how this works. Simply having those cards, yes, they're enormously helpful to a campaign, because you have that voter's information. You know you can get that voter out there. But there's no way you have 60,000 commit to caucus cards that aren't wood. You don't. Sorry. So anyway, I'm just telling you, because I'm talking to people, and I've showed people some of the transcripts. And here's another thing, why Trump could outperform. There's 2 reasons why. We are talking to people who told us they committed to caucus for Ron DeSantis, and now are not caucusing for Ron DeSantis. I'm sorry. It's real. So you got to stop telling people that crap, because why are you building people up to let them down? Be fair with them. Yes, he could outperform. He could have a better day because we put the work in, because we have the organization, because we knocked on $1 million or something. Casey knocked on the millionth this morning. That's fine. But telling people you're going to win this thing because you have commit to caucus cards, when you're polling where you're polling, and people are telling us they signed a caucus card for you and intend on voting for Donald Trump, I don't know why you're setting yourself up to fail like this. It's been the same damn thing all cycle with the DeSantis campaign. Hype expectations, fail to meet them. Hype expectations, fail to meet them. Let's talk about some demographics. Yeah, no, this will be my first caucus is Trump plus 41. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, 41. I'm looking at now, again, this is you guys, locals, knows. I always have to give this as a caveat to people out there. This is raw collection right now. And by the way, again, leaning too much to the first congressional district. Trump can't, he really pounded on urban areas because he knows there's a lot of votes there. The eastern cities, for instance, that's the part of the first congressional district. So, you can kind of split up the eastern cities area. First is here's, right? So I'm not really that surprised, but let's look. Hold on. And that is, by the way, on the phone component. Like I said, they will have to be, obviously it's a mixed mode survey, as we always do. Let's look at self-described conservatives in both, because it's also, I could tell it's a little bit, it's moderate because of the geography. And once we handle geography and get it more representative, and that I will do with large samples instead of waiting to compensate. Don't like that. But for now, let me give you both of the margins within the different modes. All right, so self-described conservatives right now is Trump plus 31 in the phone, and it's Trump plus 29 online. Self-described evangelicals is plus 26, roughly. God, I'm getting blown up here. Plus 26 on the phone, and it is plus 32 now online. So you have all of these key demographics, and I'm telling you, I just want to put this up there. I'm telling you, I think he's going to overperform. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But there's always an upset. There's always somebody not an upset, but there's always surprise. Let's put it that way. Somebody who does, 5 to 8 points better than their polls suggest, and because maybe somebody else does 4 or 5 to 8 points better or worse, than their polls suggest, that can create an upset like we saw in 2016. And I'll put that up again just so you guys see what a normal polling miss looks like in Iowa. And I said this to Tom Bevan yesterday. Tom, you know damn well what happened in 2016 is that Cruz's organization didn't, close the gap 30 points. He outperformed his polling. You could see it right there. He outperformed his polling by, what is it? I'm trying to look. It's a little tight here to see, but about 4 points, 3 point. It looks like, let's call it 4. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt because we would round up anyway, 24 to 28. And then Trump underperformed by about 4.3. Okay, so together that became a little over an 8.9 point miss. So altogether, actually, it was 8 on the dot. So Trump was ahead 4.7, Cruz won 3.3. So I could see Vivek kind of doing what Rubio did here. Rubio had 16.9. He ended up getting 23.1. That's what happens when you have no organization. All right. That's what happened. You could see Trump underperformed because of that. It's a little different this time. Trump has organization. People are telling us they have heard from him. They've heard some way from his campaign, even though he hasn't made many stops there. There's phone banking going on. People are telling us that they're getting calls out the wazoo. And then there's something, and I really can't until there are some people I asked if they would be willing to waive the confidentiality, because we tell people, and let me give you an example. We tell people that your responses are confidential and your interview is anonymous, but we know who they are. And some people we asked because their interaction was pretty indicative of some of the stuff we saw. And we'll see if I got one guy yesterday to say, yeah, I don't care. But we always ask them, would you mind if we share your experience? All right. So there's a lot of people that we had to they would say, all right, hey, how you doing? I don't really want to do it. I'm going to caucus for Trump. It's Trump. It's it. Trump has a lot of these people who say, I'm caucusing for Trump. I don't want to do the interview. And it's Trump only, like these Trump or bust. Like that article from the Iowa Standard that Vivek Ramaswamy shared this morning. That's the AP Fox News voter analysis. That person who's complaining about how they were polled and kind of laid out a very low quality way of interviewing somebody. They were trying to measure the Trump or bust vote. That's what they were doing. It was just a sad ass way to do it. And it was pathetic, but I know what they were trying to do. You should know how to pronounce caucus, by the way, if you're going to interview voters. I mean, Laura is laughing hysterically in the other room, but she's been here before. When we were in Florida, the woman couldn't speak. And you remember that? And then she's like, okay, who are you going to vote for? And Laura was like, Donald Trump. And she was like, oh. Like this audible gasp. I'm like, who are you, lady? Who do you work for? And it was Richard Hart, by the way. Richard Hart.
You remember when she was like trying to act as if you oppressed me into making that decision?
Oh my God. Like, yeah, like it was like, are you voting like that because of your husband? I'm like, is that on the questionnaire? And it's not, because when they released the poll, Hart Research, of course, as you know, polls for NBC News now, jointly with Ron DeSantis' pollster, Public Opinion Strategies. And it was one of the most unprofessional interviews I've ever heard. But what Vivek shared is somebody who had a very similar experience. And then Fox is saying they should, and I'm curious to see what their questionnaire says. If they ask people whether they thought immigration was good or bad for the country, then that's disgraceful. The problem is not immigration. The problem is illegal immigration. So here this voter is asking the interviewer, what the hell kind of question is that? Do you mean illegal or do you mean legal immigration? And they didn't really have an option. They also tried to say, listen, if Donald Trump is not the nominee, would you vote for Nikki Haley? Would you vote for Ron DeSantis? They did not ask about the other candidates. When we do the Trump or bust gauge, which we made up, by the way, we invented the Trump or bust measurement, you have to ask all candidates. It is not right to jerry pick what old man Murdoch would have wanted. Or his sons, like Murdoch Inc. doesn't get to decide which candidates are valid to ask and who are not. It's not right. Not right at all. So, but that's what they were trying to do. All right. So we'll talk a lot more about this. I know it's our guest coming at 12:30. Is that correct? Am I right? Because I have something I want to play for folks. It's 12:30. Okay. Listen, there's something I want to play for you first. I think it's just going to run autoplay as soon as I start doing it, but it's about 3 minutes long. I thought it would be nice to show you guys first something that, that I looked at in preparation for the interview. And I thought it would do. When we come back, we'll have our interview. We'll talk a little bit of polling if we have to before we get that set up. And then we'll look at some of the other polls. The Michigan, we'll look at New Hampshire too. All right. There's very different polling in New Hampshire. I think it is very clear that Nikki Haley is gaining on Donald Trump in New Hampshire. The question is it 7 points or is it 20 points? I mean, you have these very widely varying. That's New Hampshire. And New Hampshire is the anti-incumbent nomination state. So if Trump could lose any state, it would be New Hampshire. Do I still think he's going to lose it? In the USA Today poll, even if Chris Christie dropped out, he still would beat her. So I don't know. There needs to be other polling before I jump on that. But this is what New Hampshire does. All right. This is what New Hampshire does. And New Hampshire, Donald Trump set the record for the highest vote share for a renomination for any incumbent president. Before that, it was Reagan, then Obama, then Clinton, and even by all of them had some very weak vote shares. Herbert Walker Bush lost New Hampshire to Pat Buchanan. All right. So it is that quintessential buck the trend state. Okay. So don't be surprised. All right. Let me play this video. We'll come back and then we'll have our interview. And you don't need to see me. I'm out of here.
You may not know it, you may not want to believe it, but every 2 minutes, a child is sold for sex in the United States. The average age of that child is 13. And on any given month, nearly 100 children will be sold for sex online in the state of Tennessee. Every month.
And while several aspects of life have changed since 2020, sexual exploitation has not stopped. Due to the increased amount of time spent on devices, the number of child exploitation cases in the United States has risen exponentially. In fact, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children saw a surge in reports of online child sexual exploitation since 2020.
But these are just online reports, and these are only the ones we know of.
So why should you care? Because the United States is the #1 consumer of sex in the world. Human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal enterprise. Why? Because these victims are seen as renewable resources. And while drugs can be sold one time for a price, a person, a child, can be sold over and over again.
It's called domestic minor sex trafficking, or DMST. It's the commercial sexual exploitation of a child in exchange for something of value, like money, food, shelter, or even drugs. And trafficking isn't just like Taken the movie, where kids are snatched and grabbed off the street. More often, sex trafficking in the United States involves children being targeted online or in person, groomed, and then exploited. And families. You heard that right. Parents and family members selling their own children for sex in exchange for drugs, rent, shelter.
This is the reality of child sex trafficking. And it's not just happening in your country. It's happening in your state, in your city, and maybe even your neighborhood. And these children are not just numbers or statistics. We are children with names. We are children with ages. We are children with personalities, talents, and passions. We are children made in the image of God. Will you join us?
Will you join us?
Will you join us?
Will you join us?
In taking a stand against child sex slavery?
All right, wow. That video is from Street Hope, Tennessee, an organization, Street Hope, Tennessee, and we have the executive director, April Timco, with us now. April, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you coming by to talk about this. It's a huge, huge, huge issue, and it is, of course, January, and January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Thanks so much for joining Inside the Numbers, April.
Yes. Well, Rich, thank you so much for having me.
So I'm going through some of these statistics, and last year we had the movie Sound of Freedom come out, and it was like it really helped to bring awareness to this issue. But so much of this is about prevention, and then when there are these victories where we, can I don't know what the right word is, but some children are never seen again. But when they're not, we get them back. The question becomes, how best to help them. But of course, prevention is at the heart of this, right? So why don't you just tell people a little bit about Street Hope, Tennessee, and then I'd like to talk to people a little bit about those preventive measures and everything else.
Yes. So Street Hope, Tennessee is on a mission to eliminate the sexual exploitation and trafficking of children and provide environments that foster hope and healing through Jesus Christ. And we do that in 4 ways. We do that through awareness, prevention, restoration, and prayer. And prevention is really at the heart of our organization because we want to help stop this evil before it starts. And we do that through prevention training programs. We provide education for adults on what DMST, which stands for domestic minor sex trafficking, what that actually is, as well as internet safety training for both adults and youth. We have separate trainings for both of those audiences. And so we do all that we can to educate churches, schools, organizations, nonprofit organizations, as well as businesses and corporations as well.
I think as I was reading through some of the stats, and the 94 children sold for sex online every month number is just
Yes.
evil and astronomical. It's unacceptable. I think most people, when we talk about prevention, I think many people have this false impression. They get it's not that it doesn't happen. Kids aren't grabbed on the street,
Yeah.
but the online, technology moves so quickly, April, and we didn't really have a national discussion about it. So much of this has to do, especially with parents educating themselves, because the luring and the grooming online is really a major facet of that. Can you tell people a little bit about, like, if you're a parent, what you need to be on the lookout for, and then how some of these predators lure these kids?
Right. Well, really, anything that has a chat feature is a way for a predator to lure someone, for luring children online. And I think often one of the ways that they do that, and I know, like, I think it's 35% are of sexual content that children are seeing is on an Xbox. So for those of us who were like, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And
Yeah,
so I grew up with a Nintendo where,
me too.
you just had a gaming system. It wasn't connected to anything or anybody.
Yeah.
And so now they've got chat features where they can meet other people and they believe they're meeting children and other children like them, but it's actually a predator who's posing as a child. And, a lot of times when it's teenagers, for boys, it might be someone posing as a really cute girl. So there's a lot of ways out there that you need to protect your children. I think that's one of the ways that most often parents are overlooking, but also through our phones. Our phones are absolutely the top way that predators are reaching children as far as online goes.
Yeah, I was looking, and there's an app, right? It's called
Yes.
recommended app that you guys recommend, because if you're going to make the decision, for Laura and I, it was very tough. We have a daughter; she's becoming a tween, and we like, it's a very tough decision. But we with that came, like, look, you are not allowed to have these apps. We will look at your phone. We will control your usage online. I know other parents don't, but most of our kids' friends do as well. But I was glad to see this app because I had not heard of it. Can you tell us a little bit about Bark? It basically that can really, everyone should have it. It's cool.
Yes. Bark is actually, it's an app that parents can use to track the online usage, block sexual predators, basically block predators, block certain programs from coming to even present themselves to their children.
Yeah.
That is an app that we highly recommend. Also, for phones, when you are purchasing a first phone for your child, I would also recommend Gab Wireless. That is an organization, a business that basically it's an internet free phone, so that it's a way for them to really be able to reach you in situations when they're away from you, but not have that connection to the internet. Also, as we know, a lot of kids want a phone just to look cool and fit in with their friends. And so this is
Yeah.
a way to provide that for your child and get them acquainted with a phone and how to keep them in touch with you when they're away from you at practices or at school.
Yeah, I'm also and I'm trying to be a little bit, careful here, but we talk about what happens when some of these kids get back. You watch a movie like Sound of Freedom, and it's great. And God bless Jim Caviezel. God bless him. He's, but the character gets, the sister back, and the movie at the end, it doesn't tell you the work that then needs to begin to help this child become, to help them. So, I mean, the amount of pain and suffering, it must be, I can't understand it. I'm a middle-aged man, I mean, so that's, if you can, or as much as you can, I'd really like you to talk about what you guys do over it, to help these. It's 12 to 17. Those are the normal ages.
Yes, the average age for a child to be trafficked is 13.
13.
And so, yeah, and you're right. The Sound of Freedom, we are so thankful. I often get asked, has that movie helped you or hurt you? I'm always saying that has truly helped us as an organization, because it helped open people's eyes. And then they looked at organizations like, where can I go to help these children that are facing this here in the United States? Because that movie more so talks about international trafficking and talks about a situation. Actually, that movie, all the stories of that movie took place 10 years ago. So we have to realize that has even grown since then. And in
Yeah.
the United States, it looks so different because more often children are trafficked either by online usage or from their very own family or from an intimate partner, people that they actually know. And so what we do also at Street Hope is provide restoration, and we do that through a safe home called Garland Oaks. And this is the first safe home. It's one of the first safe homes in the state of Tennessee that's been open to serve girls who are 12 to 17 who have been survivors of domestic minor sex trafficking. And we do that by providing them with a program where they can receive healing and restoration. There is no time limit when they come to our home. Even if they turn 18 while they're there, it's not like they need to be released immediately. We want them to be able to heal at their own pace, and every girl heals at her own pace. So right now, this home is, of course, for girls only. We want to keep all the girls together. Yeah. We want to help serve boys as well, and we do through our organization. But these are girls ages 12 to 17. They have a 24/7 direct care staff who's taking care of them, who are trained to meet them where they are and understand how to work with children who have been through this type of trauma. We have a classroom with an education staff who is providing them with a classroom education. They go to school on the same type of schedule that our children go to school. And then they also are provided with enrichment programs, opportunities like that. They do what we call, it's leaving me right now, but like they learn a lot of life skills through certain classes that they have, a fitness class, but they are also served by a therapy team. We have a group of Christian therapists who provide them with individual sessions, group sessions, art therapy, equine therapy, which is so important for these girls because they can't often verbally communicate when they first come to us. So the art therapy and the equine therapy is really an important way for them to be able to open up.
Yeah, I want to ask about the faith aspect of this because I almost feel like there's no other way. In my experience with AA, with NA, all these different organizations, faith is central to it, and the belief in a higher power and that the love that higher power loves you is so key to healing any degree of human pain, that we all sadly experience and that can touch us. Those who don't, it's very simple, and everyone everywhere knows the 12 steps. Very simple thing. The very first one is that you have to, give it up. You got to give it up to the Lord. And I just don't know that there's another way to do it because people who don't follow that tend to regress. And we've seen it in many other programs as well. It's just not dealing with this, but really what we're talking about is we're talking about scars, and we're talking about hurt and trauma. And I just think that that's just a key aspect to that. I don't know. I'd ask you to speak to that a little if you can. I just think that is so important. It's crucial.
That's right. And at Street Hope and Garland Oaks, we completely agree and believe that. That's why we actually don't take state and government funding, just so that we can be able to provide that healing and restoration for as long as the girls need it. Of course, they do not need to be believers to come to our home. And we want to be the hands and feet of Jesus. That's what we are doing, whether they understand or believe that or not. And so, yes, faith is at the heart of all that we do. In fact, prayer is one of the 4 ways we talk about carrying out our mission. We are actually holding a prayer gathering here at our office tomorrow. We hold 2 prayer gatherings for the public each month. We have so many events that we do, worship nights and prayer walks. We do so many things because we have so many church partners. Because we don't take that state and government funding, we're able to partner with churches and individuals and so many believers who also support. They not only support us financially, but they support us through prayer and through support that we would not be able to function without, basically.
Yeah, I that struck me when I was going through some of the stuff. That struck me. You say, how can people help? They can pray for you. But I want people to go to streethopetn.org and check out the organization because I really think I didn't know. I just didn't. Who does? I didn't realize how little resources there are, out there for these kids. And again, I'm glad awareness is rising, but now we need to move to and we always need to keep up with that with awareness,
Yes.
of course. But now we need to move forward and and think about when we do have these victories. What do we do? We can't just expect that having them back, everything will be okay. That's ridiculous. That's totally unrealistic. And you're doing God's work. You really are. I mean, some of the statistics will drive people. I mean, I know the video said some. I just want to repeat some of them if you don't mind. I mean, they're just at me. I'm a numbers guy. We all know that. And this is just stunning to me. You just said before the average age is 13. Every 2 minutes in the United States, a child is sold for sex. In Tennessee, we just said before, 94 children each month sold for sex online. 75% of DMST survivors report that they were sold online or they were being sold online. And then cell phone usage and all of this tech. We have AI, obviously, what I do. I certainly come into contact with it. It's unbelievable how real, April, this stuff can look and how easy I can imagine, especially kids who, they're not developed yet. They're not, they have a lot of life experience to get. It would be very easy to use these tools to exploit people. So as parents, we really need to be on alert. Everybody. What bothers me, and I'm curious about your thoughts. There is no market without supply and demand. And I think people want to believe that the demand is coming from some, disgusting Russian oligarch somewhere, or we are the demand, April. The United States is the demand. I really want to get your thoughts on that.
Yes.
That bothers me
Yeah.
badly.
One thing I would say, and we actually have a program that is often used in churches about really fighting pornography, because I think that's another issue that we don't want to talk about, especially for those of us who are in the church, who are believers. We don't want to talk about that addiction and the temptations that are out there around that. And so we want people to understand, if they are struggling with a pornography addiction, that what they are seeing is often from that industry of child trafficking, and they have no idea. So that was one thing that was shocking to me when I actually learned of Street Hope as being one of the church partners actually 3 years ago, before I came to this organization. And so one of the most shocking things to me was how the child trafficking industry and pornography go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And for the people who are purchasing that material, they are actually helping to support child trafficking as well.
Yeah, and we're in North Carolina now. Of course, we obviously, Joe, we were in Florida for many, many, many years, but a couple of years ago moved to North Carolina, and that was just a big headline here because these websites, we all know who they are, and they've been in the news and at the forefront of this issue. They could not prevent underage girls from appearing on their website, even though they would repeatedly promise lawmakers that they would make these changes. And but they are fueling an addiction. And you're right about that. That's a major problem. But at the bottom, at the end of the day, I think what our state cared about was that they were failing miserably at doing that basic task. So now they're cut. If you live in the state of North Carolina, good luck with that addiction, because you can't get it, so, and people were furious over it. And I got to tell you, look, I chuckled, April. I did, because I've watched this documentaries on that. We've looked into this. I don't want to point any fingers, but we all know who they are. They made billions of dollars. This is $1 billion industry, billions of dollars. They made a lot of money for many years under the radar, and not caring at all about where some of that content was coming from and who was in that content. And they're more than enabling it. Like you said, it's hand in hand. They're fueling it. And it's just gross. Again, it bothers me that the United States really is the number one demand, on this side of this disgusting market, so Is there anything else you want people to know, or anything else you think people should know? Threw a lot at them, but it's just
Yeah.
I'm so glad to have had you today.
I think to follow up on what you just said, I think states are starting to recognize, and states like North Carolina are starting to come against this and make people that try to access those sites go through a very lengthy age verification process. In fact, here in the state of Tennessee, just last month, a representative introduced legislation that is getting us on that track and getting us moving toward having that same type of security for our children, and even for people that are facing it as an addiction. So I would encourage people to really reach out to their lawmakers and talk about this, get this out there, and step out and start speaking up if your state is not one of those. Parents and grandparents, I would say to completely just really dive into educating and protecting your children. We've got education resources on our website, but there are several others out there that we love to refer to as well. Following us on social media will also share those prevention resources as well, but also encouraging your workplace, place of worship, organizations to start discussing DMST, what it is, and what you need to do to protect your kids. And then for the people of faith out there, I would say join us in praying.
Yeah, I tell you, like I said, I mean, even before the movie last year made headway, we did see the other end of this, the investigative end of this. But you're really you're doing God's work. I mean, you're at the other side that I think too few people look at. Like the aftermath of it, and so. I really don't know what else to say, but to thank you for the work you're doing. People should go. Again, it's Street Hope TN, like Tennessee, and streethopetn.org. Go check out the website and definitely educate yourself in this. It's just so much. I mean, we threw some things at you guys, but there is a lot that we all really need to know and educate ourselves on. Today's or tomorrow's the day, for Awareness Day, but the entire month of January is Awareness Month. So now would be the time to do it. Thanks, April. I really appreciate it. Come back and visit us, and stay in touch. I really like to, keep up with your progress and everything that's going on there.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for having us.
April Timco, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, April. That was, go check it out. There it is right there on the bottom, streethopetn.org. I'll tell you what, there was so much I didn't realize. Again, I think we all know some of the numbers that people throw at us. We hear a quick news clip, right? We hear a quick news clip, and then we all think that we have a way that human trafficking happens in our minds, I think. And that image is incorrect. And I mean, it's part of it for sure, but it's outdated and it's incorrect. And I really wish as a nation, we would have this discussion a lot more. This needs to be part of the national discourse. Technology moved. It's one thing, and probably one of the most significant, if not the most significant implication for technology in society. But it's a perfect example of technology moving so fast that we couldn't keep up. We just couldn't keep up. And unfortunately, you have investigators trying to, catch up with these people who do this, and, they adapt. It used to be this, now it's AI. It used to be these things. It used to be catfishing. Now it's deep fakes. I mean, it happens so quick, and we're not, it's one issue, but it's a huge issue. We just don't, as a society, talk about what it means when technology moves that quick. Wow, I'm great. That was great. I'm so thankful for April to have come by and talk to us about all of that and the great work she does. Got Laura, she's doing God's work over there. God's work.
It's really amazing, and I personally know.
I know you know more. I know, yeah.
That work there. I'm not going to mention names or anything.
It's just amazing what they do. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, serious team there, and
I'm stunned by how few resources there are for victims of child sex, well,
yes.
not just children, but absolutely. You would think we would prioritize these children. The average age is 13. That their home is 12 to 17. Their girls' home.
Mhm.
I'm just stunned at how few resources, when I looked into it, there are for victims of child
And,
sex trafficking.
and
I just,
I think
what
you
are we
made
doing?
I think you also made a valid point. Pardon me. Is that most people think it's some Russian oligarch or
Yeah.
some like weird nation. Meanwhile, it's that parent that doesn't value their child as a
Ugh.
God-given creature, that a gift from God, and they are willing to sell said kid for anything, and I mean anything. So I think it's a very important subject, and I think it's a taboo subject that nobody wants awareness to, and because then it could be kept as the dirty little secret, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, everybody, they are a 501. So, 501c3. So go to their website, check them out, support them if you can. Laura and I love to highlight people who do good work. At least, when we get to the holidays, we normally do that. That's what we do during the holidays. But January is Awareness Month. And, this ended up being the right time to do it. Again, it gave me more time to educate myself on some of the things, some of the aspects of the issues and then what they do. And the number one thing that popped out at me, aside from all this other stuff, is just how little resources there are for these kids. And I think I assumed there was some like government program or something. I don't know. I mean, I guess I did. And I'll tell you what, I don't want government doing everything. I don't. And I'm not sure government's not going to be able to do something like that well at all, because I'll go back to it. And I know we all have our own beliefs and our own, values, but I'll go back to this. The bottom line is, you can't heal that level of pain and that level of hurt without God. I'm sorry, you can't. I have seen good people, they're not bad people. They're just sick. They just have addictions. They have hurt. They have scars. It helps fuel their addictions. They can't do it if they don't accept the spiritual aspect of it, and they fail. And it's sad to watch, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody make it through the program who didn't. I don't think I did. I'm trying to think about it right now, and I can't think of a single example. And so, some people are better. They don't need as much as others. I don't want to say better. Some people don't need as much attention as others, but nobody was successful in addressing some of those underlying problems and hurt without a level of faith. All right. And it's, in those programs anyway, it's whatever your faith is. You just have to accept that, that there is a creator and some premises behind it. And I feel like a lot of these other disgusting vices that we have as human beings are really attempts to fill holes where spirituality is supposed to be in our hearts and our souls. And when it's not there and there's a void, it leads to bad behavior, because we're trying to fill that void with something unhealthy. All right, let's take a real quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about some of the other polling. I got to go over this poll in Michigan. I'll tell you what, I thought, oh my goodness, when I put out the Rust Belt poll, oh my God, Trump plus 4.7? No, that can't be right. Now I'm on the low end of the spectrum. There are other polls out there now in Michigan. I would expect Michigan still be rather close, but there is no doubt anymore. Michigan is possible. And if you consider the demographics, how much he's doing better with younger minorities, how much he's doing better with certain young people, how much he's doing better with working class, how much better he's doing with working class voters. The demographics of Michigan, Ray Texera is right. When you look at a state like Michigan and Georgia, for instance, you may not think Everyone says, well, Wisconsin is closer. Trump is particularly strong in Pennsylvania. If you look at it right now, Trump is running stronger in the polling in Michigan than he is in Pennsylvania. And there are demographic reasons to at least argue that could be the case. In 2020, our polling was clear. It was Wisconsin and Pennsylvania being a lot easier of a lift for Trump than Michigan. Michigan was, 2.5 solid points out of reach, even though, by the way, it was R +1 electorate. We modeled it D +2. So, mail-in voting, folks. What could I tell you? All right, let's take a real quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about it. And it's just some golden quotes from that article. All right, here's our friends at Jammin Bean. Code still works even after the holidays. I don't know about you guys, but we had some, what do you call it, Laura? Winter pancakes? Snow pancakes? What do you call it? It was absolutely
I call sorry, Roman wants to.
Okay, everybody loves Roro. Snow pancakes, she said. Tell them that it's snow pancakes. And we used the delicious Michigan maple syrup from our friends and patriots at jamminbean.com. And it was divine. The kids loved it. We got a whole slew of new popcorn. The ranch is amazing. It's all great. If you're really getting into freeze-dried candies and stuff, they have some really cool one that I really like a lot is the saltwater. It's cookies and cream saltwater taffy that's freeze-dried. And I'm not a fan of saltwater taffy. I'm not.
It's cookie dough,
amazing. Huh?
Cookie dough, baby.
The cookie dough. Sorry. What'd I say?
Cookies and cream.
Cookies and cream. It was a cookie dough. Sorry about that. Cookie dough. That's the one. Yeah. And it is freeze dried and it just melts in your mouth and the flavor is just unbelievably good. And then the bits of honey. Oh, man. I'm telling you, they're out of this world to die for. And of course, their coffee is wonderful and delicious. It is our family's favorite medium blend out there. There's just nothing better. And when it comes to K-Pods, if you're like me, guys, you really like freshly roasted coffee, which you then blend yourself and brew yourself. But sometimes I'm in a rush. A lot I am, actually. And I need to use K-Cups. I can never find a later in the day medium K-Cup that was good. And what I found out was very simple. That's because they don't exist. Most companies will just put what is normally their dark roast. They'll just put less in it and then use this other, I don't even want to give you an idea of what it is, but it's like this wafer, this foam wafer in the K-Cup. It's disgusting. It cannot be good for you in some of these brands to run hot water through that thing and drink it. It just can't. So they did the R&D. They had the basically the science behind it, and their medium blend is just absolutely delicious. And that goes, by the way, for the beans too. Taste of freedom right there. Awesome. The Penitent Man is delicious. I love the Penitent Man. So whether you go to Jammin Bean right now, JAMN bean.com. It's on the screen. Use that promo code TPP40, obviously TPP for the People's Pundit 40. That'll give you 40% off right off the bat with a new subscription. And then every month when that subscription renews, you're still going to get 10% off. Look at those boxes. Look at those. I mean, we love getting those gift boxes and they're amazing, guys. You won't be disappointed. Send us your feedback. We'd love to hear it. If you're like a savory kind of person and you get that popcorn, you're definitely going to want one of them. Like the ranch was like Laura's new favorite, I think. But the sour cream and chives, the dill one, the creamy dill, it's called. You just can't go wrong. The buffalo is amazing. The Chicago mix is delicious. You really just can't go wrong. And that's like, if you like sweet and savory, they have these mixes that are just incredible. They're like the perfect combination. It's amazing. They're really good, really amazing. All right, one more time. jamminbean.com, TPP 40 at checkout. TPP 40 at checkout. This thing's doing the spinning wheel of death here. Is it going to give me a problem? Because I'm really dying to read this in its entirety. I saw this come out. And by the way, John Sikowitz, he's written for People's Pundit Daily before. He's written some amazing articles for People's Pundit Daily. He also wrote for the Detroit Business Quarterly, which is fantastic. And I met John after 2016 when he was basically covering Michigan polling, and we got it right. Others didn't, and one other did. But he met with the traditional pollsters. He knows all the players in Michigan. The Detroit News started using the Glenn Gariff group after their miss in 2016, which was really egregious. And Glenn Gariff had Hillary Clinton beating Donald Trump. I don't want to say the margin because I don't know it exactly, but they had Joe Biden beating Donald Trump by 7. So, John, yesterday, they announced that they've been in the field and they have a new Detroit News poll from the state of Michigan coming out later today. John immediately goes, I'm telling you, it's going to be Trump +8. And I'm like, what? He puts it in the thread just so it's for posterity, so people don't think he's full of crap when he later claims that he called it. And he's like, I'm just telling you, it's the way things are shaping out. It's bad. It's going to be bad for Biden here. And underneath, he writes it. Detroit News, a couple hours later, publishes the results. And bam, he nailed it right on the dot. Trump +8. This has never happened before. All right. Let me just put it this way. These margins for Donald Trump have never materialized. And I know that there are people out there right now with this crazy conspiracy that the media, all of the media, is pumping up Donald Trump because he's actually the one who is weakest against Joe Biden. Of course, there is no evidence that the premise of that argument is even true. Both DeSantis and Haley have worse favorability ratings now at this point. Haley's been toting a Wall Street Journal poll that is 3 months old. She now loses to Joe Biden, the only one who is winning. And by the way, the Economist poll just showed the same thing. DeSantis is even doing better than her against Joe Biden now. Why? I told you. Nobody knew who she was. She was basically a generic nobody. When people get to know who she is. And do you think Democrats aren't going to bring up Boeing? You think Democrats are not going to tell you that Nikki Haley gave millions of dollars in subsidies to Boeing to come to South Carolina to bring the manufacturing of certain planes to South Carolina with the explicit agreement that they would be in the culture of cutting corners, having a culture of cut corner culture in Charleston? There's half a dozen employees who will testify to it. They'll be all over Joe Biden's ads. She looked the other way to get the business. Then she advocated for them, both as governor and as the United Nations ambassador. Donald Trump, let me just say this before I bring this back. Hold on one second. Let's go to this. Just thank you. Donald Trump is the first and only president of the United States in the history of America and flight travel, by the way, commercial flights, to ground an airplane against the wishes of the FAA. When the second crash happened in the 737 MAX, they tried to pick up the phone, they being Boeing. When the first crash happened, they blamed foreign pilots, which was disgusting. Because the first flight, the pilot he had no training on the new system, which was a default. I don't even know it was faulty if is the right word. It was a killer. It was called MCAS. And they argued that it was just basically a new feature of Star Trim, and pilots didn't need new training, and it's not a big deal because they were trying to save money. They didn't want new pilot training for that aircraft. Anyway, they blame it on this pilot, this poor guy who did not get any additional time in the simulator to deal with MCAS. Their own internal report said what they found is that even a pilot who did get the simulation training for the new system would have a window of 10 seconds to employ the checklist, to correct the MCAS system. And what was it called? I'm trying to catastrophic. So it would be a catastrophic failure within 10 seconds. So basically, when MCAS took over the way it did with that plane, that poor ass pilot had 10 seconds. He didn't even know it. And it was like a countdown to his death. and the death of 160 something souls. And Boeing lied about it because they have powerful friends like Nikki Haley who would whisper in Donald Trump's ear and whisper in the FAA's ear and say it's not Boeing. Come on, it's Boeing. You're an great American company. And you know Donald Trump, he loves great American company. Remember what he did with Boeing at the very beginning? Even when he was still the president-elect, he was negotiating to keep Boeing jobs intact, to keep them afloat and ready to do business with his administration. Anyway, by the time the second plane crashed, that didn't work anymore, and Donald Trump grounded the flight immediately. And then they found the tail screw, which was the smoking gun. The MCAS system put those people into the ground. So there's more than 350 human souls all wiped off the face of the earth. And then the behavior by that company afterwards, Nikki Haley is knee deep in that pile of, you know what? It's disgusting. You think Joe Biden and Democrats aren't going to drag up those people and their family members to talk about how Nikki Haley killed their mother, their father, their sister, their daughter, their son, their wife, their husband, their grandfather, their papa, their Nino, their Nona? Come on. Abuela, this one. Right. They're all, are you kidding me? And she will get crushed in Michigan. Crushed. I'm watching Trump stomp Joe Biden in Iowa right now. I'm not even kidding. It's like Trump plus 12 or 14, depending on the way. When they lean it, I think it's going to be like Trump plus 14. It's an absolute stomp fest right now over there. And I'm just thinking to myself, I remember my socialist friend not too long ago laughing in my face on election night because Barack Obama had crushed John McCain. A black guy beat him in the cornfields of Iowa. What a loser. And he was right. Did you ever think the day would come? Remember? You know what I'm talking about. Don't say it, but you know what I'm talking about, Laura. My longest friend. And then it wasn't that long ago, even less time still, watching Mitt Romney get absolutely thrashed when he thought in 2012 he was actually going to carry the state of Iowa. Yes, this is how brilliant the Republican establishment is. Let's elect or nominate a Mormon to go against the African-American working class hero in Iowa who gives subsidies to the farmers. Like, this is how stupid these people are. I think Nikki Haley would lose Iowa. I do. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding at all. 100%. I think Nikki Haley would lose Iowa and probably Ohio too. And she might eke out Florida. I don't know. I just don't know. North Carolina, I think, would probably be fair. If they even went for Mitt Romney, I think she'd do better in like the research triangle than some other Republicans. And that would help make up for all these Republicans in the mountain areas and eastern North Carolina, from Craven to Carteret. Laura, a lot of Republican votes there. That's Greg Murphy's area. And I don't think she would get them out. I think a lot of them would just say up yours, and that's it. But I think she'd do a little bit better and hang on to it. I don't think she could win any of these Rust Belt states. It would mean, when we go over this poll, you'll see what I'm talking about. It would mean all of these people, and you're going to read one of them, in Monroe, in Macomb, the home of the Reagan Democrat. They're not coming out for her. All right. She's going to win Monroe. She would win Monroe, but not by a lot. A decent margin. She's going to lose Macomb County. Absolutely going to lose it. And what they want you to think is that somehow she'll do better in heavily educated now and richer, wealthier Oakland. Are you kidding me? I don't care who Republicans run. Oakland's voting for the Democrat. Ronald Reagan couldn't win Oakland today. It's not happening. But this is what they want you to think. And then let me ask you, is it going to be 300,000 roughly net margin coming out of Wayne County? Is she going to do better with African-American men in Wayne County? Get out of here. Come on. It's just stupid. Yeah, I mean, really. It's like, it reminds me of polling for Jeb Bush in 16. Not that I polled. I mean, his polling numbers in 2016. I wouldn't poll for Jeb Bush if you cut my left up, you know what, off. All right, let's get into this. Let me get a sip of my blue raspberry body armor. 112, not bad. Biden struggling in Michigan as Trump grabs strong lead. Are you talking to me, love? Oh, it's for real? Okay. President Biden's support is on shaky ground in Michigan, and he trails Republican Donald Trump by 8 percentage points in a head-to-head matchup 10 months before the November 5th election, according to a new statewide poll commissioned by the Detroit News and WDIV TV Channel 4. And by the way, I can answer that question in 2 seconds about the polling in New Hampshire. The CNN poll is conducted by the University of New Hampshire. They have been in the Trump bearish tranche the entire cycle. When Trump was at 50 or close to 50, they still had him in the 30s. Go and look, and you will see if you look at the RCP average, because I don't know if we're going to have time. I'll do it, but I know you guys are interested in this, so I'm just telling you this right now. If you compare the University of New Hampshire poll with the Anselm College poll or the CBS News poll or any of the other polls, in Suffolk even, you will find that they were always much more bearish on the non-Trump second place person. It's DeSantis, whatever it may be. And they actually had DeSantis leading Trump in New Hampshire at one point, which was absolutely ridiculous. And nobody else ever had that result. Not even in January of 2023. Okay. Nobody had that result but them and CNN. And then CNN partners with the University of New Hampshire to come up with this latest poll that shows Haley is down by only 7. The very same day, Suffolk University had done their poll, which showed 2 things. One, Trump's lead was 20 points, much more in line with the average at the time. And then the second part of it is, even if Christie dropped out, it just would mean that she would lose by a slightly less margin. But she's clearly got momentum in New Hampshire because that's New Hampshire. It's finicky. If you look in the polls, you'll see that they're it's way too moderate in the New Hampshire University of New Hampshire poll. Now, it could be that it turns out to be more moderate than usual. That is absolutely possible. I'm just telling you why the disparity between the polls and why I'm not yet sold on Nikki Haley's going to win New Hampshire. If Trump, it wouldn't matter anyway. Great podcast with Matt Taibbi and Robert Cahaly and Newt Gingrich joined them on, I can't remember the name of their podcast. It's poll something. Something about polls. Anyway, it's a cool podcast. And the 3 of them know the Carolinas and they know Georgia. They know Republican primary electorates in the Southeastern Conference area. And Newt Gingrich was like, let's say she beats him in New Hampshire. So what? Then she's going to go on to be humiliated because she's going to be trounced in South Carolina. Newt should know a little something about the state of South Carolina and the electorate there. He won it against Mitt Romney. So she would get 3 delegates and then get her butt kicked in her own home state? They're really going to try to use a primary that is meaningless, where she's the only one on the ballot still running in Nevada, to try to give her momentum to make South Carolina closer. The electorate in South Carolina, folks, is a lot closer to Iowa now than it is New Hampshire. It used to be the other way around, but because of how Trumpism has changed the Republican Party, it's not anymore. Trump is dominant in South Carolina. Dominant. She could do well in Charleston and, where Boeing country is, where they let planes fall out of the sky for money. She could do good in that neighborhood. She's going to get destroyed in the rest of her own state. So they made a great point about that. And they were just like, where else is she going to go? Like, South Carolina is not going to care what moderates in New Hampshire do. It's just reality. It's a waste of money. because here he's winning the state of Michigan by 8 points. But according to my own estimates, and I have done the numbers on this, believe me, people always ask, Rich, why don't you show this stuff to people? I've been asked to do it. Ballpark $8 million to make sure that you win the state of Michigan by 70,000 votes. And instead, they want to blow it on New Hampshire. Over $100 million in the state of Iowa. Over $100 million. $20 million just in the final stretch. More than what it would take to secure a Trump victory in the state of Michigan. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable how stupid these people are. Unbelievable. All right. The survey of 600 likely general election voters in the battleground state found only 17% said Biden, the Democratic incumbent, deserved another term leading the country. That number marked a low for a major public office holder in modern Michigan political history, as Richard, and listen, Rich, I don't know if I'm going to get your name right or not. Kazuba, founder of Lansing-based Glenn Gariff Group, which conducted the poll. Poll screams Biden can't win is another headline here. Likewise, in a potential contest between Biden and Trump, who is facing a historic onslaught of criminal charges, 47% of likely voters said they preferred Trump, while 39% selected Biden, an 8-point advantage for Trump, according to the survey with a margin of error of plus or minus 4 points. So Trump's lead is outside the survey error, anything about 6 points, for not to be too complicated, but it does change when the share of the vote changes. I'm not going to get into it and go into the weeds, but that lead is outside the sampling error. In addition, 3% said they would vote for another candidate, and 11% said they were undecided. Now, even if Biden was to get the lion's share of that undecided, he would need to take it greater than 7-4, because Trump gets 4 of that, it's over. That's very tough to do. Very tough, especially given the demographics of Michigan. It would be incredibly difficult. Trump's lead over Biden widened to as much as 12 points when voters surveyed were given a list of third-party candidates. Biden, the current president, and Trump, the former president, are widely expected to emerge this year as their party's nominees. The Glenn Gariff Group has been conducting polls featuring Trump for the News and WDIV since 2016. The January 2nd to 6th survey was the first time Trump had a lead in Michigan over the likely Democratic nominee prior to an election. This is the first time in their poll Trump has ever led. It's very significant, folks. This is like a kind of a pollster, and he did. So it's not like I'm giving him unfair criticism. This is the kind of pollster that would have out Biden +7, Biden +8, and I'm over there like Biden +2, which is what he won by, and it's very frustrating. Can we get back to normal criticisms of the polling industry now? Valid criticisms of the polling industry. The Glenn Gariff Group has been conducting these polls the first time Trump led. All right, so here you can say it. There's Joe Biden. It's a nice little graph there. We don't really need to go over it. And if you really want to say, the poll had a partisan makeup of 39.8% of voters who were Democrat, 39.5% who vote Republican, and 19.2% who identify as political independents. Now, this is not the correct way for them to have said that. You know what they mean. 39.8% identified as Democrat. It's not correct to say voters who vote Democrat. 39.5% who vote Republican. It's not correct. Identify as Republican. And 19.2% identify as political independents. For the state of Michigan, that's really close. Very close to what we had. It may be identical. I'm not even kidding. I feel like our poll was 39.8% Democrat, 39.5% Republican, Laura. In Michigan, I feel like it was. If I were a Democrat in Michigan, I would be breaking the emergency fire alarms in the White House and demanding to know what the plan is for Michigan, the pollster said, because these numbers are very bad for any incumbent party, for any incumbent of any party. That is as strong as a statement as a media pollster gets, folks. Asked whether Biden had performed his job well enough to deserve re-election or if it was time to give someone else a chance, 17% said Biden deserved re-election. 77% wanted a different national leader. Conversely, 33% of the polls respondents said Trump deserves a second term, while 62% said they would prefer someone else. So it's not like Trump had great numbers on this, but, I'd rather be Trump than Biden. And truth be told, we keep hearing all these narratives about the country doesn't want this rematch. Well, very clearly they do, because Biden is way ahead of any of his challengers, even when Robert Kennedy was a Democrat. Yes, they're doing Hitlerian things, keeping Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson off of ballots in North Carolina, in Florida, everywhere. I mean, tons of places they're throwing them off these ballots. They're doing what they're doing to Trump, to the primary. They don't listen. Democrats don't believe in elections anymore. I'm sorry. Can we stop pretending? Democrats don't believe. They keep going on and on about democracy. Molly Hemingway is 100% in all of these fake media articles and all these crying and bitching sessions that you'll see Democrats do on Twitter, and then they become sources of articles and headlines. If you just replace the word democracy, like Republicans are a threat to democracy, right? Anytime you hear Mark Elias use the word democracy, if you just replace it with Democrats or the Democratic Party, that's what they really mean. Because their actions are completely undemocratic. It is not good for an incumbent president to have challengers in a primary. It didn't help Jimmy Carter. It didn't help Herbert Walker Bush. It wasn't good for them. And they would go on to lose, by the way. Trump had challengers, but he wiped the floor with them. He went on to lose too, but he had these people, Walsh and Baker and all the, I'm not going to say it, but, they were problematic. So I know why Democrats are trying to rig the primary and make sure there's not really a contest. I get it. But you can't do that. And Trump beat them. He just beat them. It's Biden's job to beat them. It's outrageous that he would not allow a primary contest. And they're trying to bring up a couple instances in which Baker and Walsh were challenged for the ballots in certain states. That was after the fact. And Trump was already drumming them. And it wasn't a widespread effort the way it is now. They don't, just same thing. They're trying to take Trump off the ballot. It's the same, what they are doing to Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson is the same thing they're doing to Donald Trump. It is an attempt to stop elections. They don't believe in elections anymore. It's very clear. So anyway, The poll's findings are warning signs for Michigan Democrats who've scored a series of political victories over the last 6 years and have taken control of state government. The numbers arrived as the Michigan Republican Party faces financial turmoil, and after Michigan's Democratic governor, Gretchen Whitmer, won her re-election campaign in November 2022 by more than 10 points. By the way, the Glenn Gariff group did a good job on polling Whitmer. We did not poll it. I love it when DeSantis' people are like, I don't listen to you. You got Michigan wrong. And they say it all the time. I didn't poll Michigan in 22, you idiots. Wrong pollster. But Glenn Gariff group did, and they did a pretty good job, frankly. Presidential elections and midterm elections are very different animals. Polling them is very different. I'll be honest with you. We had 18, which was public, where we did very well polling that midterm election. Obviously, 16, we did very well. Although people don't like to talk about it, but it is true. We missed New Hampshire. We had Trump up by 0.8 in New Hampshire. He lost by 0.4 or something. Very close, but it was a miss, be honest. Well, the winner board was a miss. It was within the sampling error. It really wasn't until 22 that we had some that I really didn't like. But Michigan is not one of them. So Michigan, we're still doing this. We're basically undefeated so far. I'm going to keep it that way. But when I released the 4 points, the Trump plus 5, basically, if you round, I was very uncomfortable. I always put out the data as it is, folks. The results are what they are. But I was very uncomfortable. I'm like, just cannot be right. But here, this guy is Trump plus 8, even more than me. Interesting thing coming up. There's a nice quote coming up here that really says a lot, but wait. The results also came after Trump's campaign attempted to overturn Michigan's 2020 presidential election. You believe these people? They can't just report a poll without fudging and lying. And his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, the day lawmakers met to count the country's electoral votes. By the way, if you don't know, Ray Epps right now is a rat fink, a total plant, then you're an idiot. It doesn't matter what side of the tracks you come from, whether you're street smart or you were born and raised on, with the laws of the street. You don't have to be that to know Ray Epps is a total rat fink and a plant. Dude, we have people who didn't even step foot in the Capitol getting decade plus of their life sentenced in prison. And Ray Epps got no jail time when there are multiple videos of him telling people we have to storm the Capitol. We have to go in. And by the way, Ann Coulter has totally disgraced herself. She is just a lunatic at this point. Ray Epps to go after Vivek like that. It's like Vivek is telling the truth. It's on video. Here we have a guy inciting and encouraging people to go into the building. He gets no jail time. That's how the world works. I don't really give a damn what Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger or CNN or any of them tell it. I know how the world works. When everyone else is getting handed quarter or half of a life sentence for nothing, for trespassing, and then a guy like that gets away with such clear evidence that he engaged and entrapped, really, that's how you know he's a fink. Anyway, Biden won Michigan in November 2020 by 154,000 votes, or 3 percentage points. 51, it's not 3, actually. It's 2.6, I think. 51 to 48. At a similar point before that election, in January 2020, a Glenn Gariff poll for the News and WDIV-TV found Biden, who hadn't yet locked up the Democratic nomination, leading Trump by 7 points. And they had, I believe their final was Biden plus 7. In 2020, Trump became the first Republican in 28 years to win a presidential election in Michigan. He beat Hillary Clinton by 0.2%, 48 to 47, or about 10,000. Yeah, forget about the more. It's about 10,700 votes. Glenn Gariff Group polls ahead of that found Trump trailing Clinton. Biden is not that. Trump's support in the new poll, 47% in a head-to-head contest, was in line with the shares of the vote he secured in the last 2 presidential elections. Yes, but that tells you he's overperforming, because his share of the polls in the last 2 presidential elections was much, much lower. And then he would outperform those polls. If you're already polling him at 47% in Michigan, it means he's going to hit, or is likely to hit a majority of that vote. With 11% undecided? Come on. Kazuba, what the hell? How do you say your last name, Rich? I don't know. Said what changed is how Michigan voters view Biden, who's now 81 years old and the oldest sitting president in U.S. history. There's no doubt about that. The view of Biden is absolutely, because the view that the media presented of Biden in 2020 wasn't real. And voters are now finding out, or voters now know it's not real. And absolutely right, Matt. Nobody's opening those magnetic doors from outside. Anyone who has ever visited that building knows they have to let you in. It's such a scam. The whole thing is such a scam. That's all the federal government does, law enforcement and the feds. All they do is entrap people. They don't actually do any investigative work. They spy on you and entrap you. That's what they do. It's what they've always done. If they can't find you committing a crime, they will convince you or try to convince you to commit a crime. Yeah, that's right. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime, like Russians. They created the country, the history, really the biggest hacker of tax fraud in the country. They created him by catching when they caught somebody, they had turned him like a Frank Abagnale kind of thing, and that person taught him everything there was to know about tax fraud and made him sitting in front of 2 U.S. Marshals. All they do is entrap people. That guy had no intention of ever committing tax fraud. Was he a criminal? Yeah. But that was not his crime. And Uncle Sam paid out billions to dead Social Security numbers for tax refunds. So freaking incompetent. 3 years into his first term, the survey found 29% of participants had a favorable impression of Biden, but 58 had an unfavorable impression. That sounds high. That sounds too negative to me, but okay. The numbers demonstrated a significant drop in support for the Democrat, a former 2-term vice president and longtime U.S. senator from Delaware. In September 2020, ahead of the November election, a similar poll of likely Michigan voters found 43 had a favorable impression of Biden. Likewise, 50% of participants. Can I have a Tom, Laura? Oh my God, the heartburn is unbelievable. And likewise, 50% of participants in the new survey said they strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing as president. 11% said they somewhat disapprove, for a total disapproval of 61%. What did we have him as here? I know I put his approval in here. We had 56.9 disapprove, 40.2 approve. However, we had 43% strongly disapprove and 18.4 who strongly approve. That's what it is. Only 36.1% of Black voters strongly approve. Only 18.4% of Hispanic vote. I see you, Sean. 18.4% of Hispanic voters strongly approve. 25.5% of Asian voters strongly approved. Just whites, just 15.4 strongly approved. So maybe it is that bad, guys. Maybe it's gotten worse since we polled. It's entirely possible. This is really bad for Joe. I mean, this is really bad. And 4% didn't offer an answer. We only had, for no answer, you know what? Let me click on the cross. I'm just curious. I want to, posterity, folks, posterity. Let me just look. I want to say it's fairly small with us now. I mean, when it comes to Biden's approval, he's getting with other presidents where it's like, yeah, here we go, 2.8%. So they got 4, we got 2.8, so very, very close. For all we know, it could be 3.6 and they rounded it to 4. Thank you so much, honey. Jeez Louise. You guys mind if I go ahead and chew on this tablet real quick? Hang on. Yeah. I like that lipstick. It's hot. I'm just saying, I'm just being real. Rich is sexually harassing his employees again. Only one. I only sexually harassed one of my employees. She don't mind.
It's a good thing because I'm married to you.
Right.
I just want that as a disclaimer, so whoever
I know, but I
clicks
wanted to
that
like,
part-
I wanted to leave it hanging out there a little bit, so some lib would have been like, "Oh my God, we got him!"
you remember? I'll distract you.
Benario Chapman. This is a great interview, Laura. Benario Chapman, a 29-year-old self-described independent from Muskegon, who participated in the poll. Remember, Muskegon is somewhere that Trump slid a little bit. Said he was open to voting for a Democrat if it was someone like Whitmer. But Chapman said he simply isn't a fan of Biden. Whitmer is consistent and clearly cares for the community, Chapman said. Biden hasn't produced the results required to be granted a second term, he added. If the race in November is between Biden and Trump, Chapman's leaning in favor of Trump. He is who he is, and that's who he's going to be. I can expect Trump to be Trump, he said. And I can go for somebody who stands in their own truth. Biden is not that. Chapman said he felt Biden was in it for the title. Listen, Biden accomplished what he accomplished in what he was meant to accomplish, what they wanted him to accomplish in November of 2020. Actually, it was December because they took so long to count the votes, basically. But you know what I mean. Joe Biden was not what they wanted. They had no choice because Bernie was going to win. So they rigged a primary. They did. I don't know how you could be a Democratic voter and not be mad. I just don't know. Republicans try to do this crap too to their voters, but at least once Democrats get to Congress, they represent their voters, you know. They get to the White House, they represent their voters. Republicans don't. But Democrats straight tried to like steal elections. Like they straight up rig primaries or cancel them altogether. And Republicans don't do that, at least not yet. Do they try to cheat? Yes. Do they try to gain favor? Yes. Do I think, for instance, Chris Sununu has called every favor in the local media outlet that he has to skew the news in favor of Nikki Haley? Absolutely. Do I think they got ARG to publish that result? Yep, I do. But then, do I think that Chris Sununu will use his power as governor to influence the State Department to perhaps screw around with the votes? Yeah, I sure do. But Democrats are just open and brazen about it. Bernie was winning that primary, and he was going to be the Democratic nominee. But Bernie is a little bit of a wild card, and maybe they couldn't control him on everything. So Barack Obama could not take that risk with his legacy. And Bernie, by the way, in their mind, was going to be beaten by Donald Trump. By the way, without COVID, Trump would have beat Biden too. Not even a question. I don't think there's anybody who could possibly try to argue the alternative. It's that's not a viable position. So they rigged the primary against Bernie to protect Obama's legacy and to get rid of the big mad man, Donald Trump, who poses an existential threat to their very existence and way of life. So they had this view, voters had this view of Biden that was not real. You remember the decency argument, guys? You remember how many times Joe Biden used the word decent in his speech at the DNC? How many times he said it in his opening video, which also included the white people, the very fine people hoax? What Joe Biden was being presented as was not real. A peacemaker. A bright guy. A nice guy. Everybody knows Joe Biden is a prick. He's not a nice guy. He's always been that kind of like, they call him Uncle Joe, but there's another aspect. There's another side of Uncle Joe. When you don't laugh at Uncle Joe's jokes and he don't like what you're saying, Uncle Joe gets mean. He has always been a mean guy. His very first year in public office said, I'll whore myself if you got the money. They portrayed him as something he wasn't, and now that has all fallen away. Those who gave Biden negative reviews are asked an open-ended question about why they have an unfavorable opinion of him. The most frequent answers were related to his age, his general level of competence, and his mental competence, with 41% of the responses connected to those topics. It is about how they perceive his fitness for office, Kazuba said. Trump is 77, 4 years younger, and the Republican turned 78 in June. Yeah, and I thought you were answering something more for us. But anyway, the survey also asked what issue would most influence a participant's vote. The top answer was jobs and the economy, which got 16. The second most frequent response was the border and immigration, which received 9. Inflation and the cost of living is next at 7. Protecting American democracy, which Biden has made a focal point of his reelection bid, receives 4%, behind foreign policy 7, and abortion at 5. I just want to say this, though. Jan over at the Epoch Times and I had an exchange, about at this point anymore, even though Joe Biden has made this about Trump and, negative, Republicans are this threat. When you ask people about protecting them, people who say protecting democracy, right? It's not uniformly Democratic anymore. After the indictments, it became clear to a lot of people that that is an attempt to that's an attempt to rig the election. That's election interference. So actually, there are a lot of people who say that now mean it's like against the state. All right. You can't just assume it's people who care about January 6th anymore. Is my point. All right. Of the participants in the poll, 40% were Democrats, 40 were Republican. Remember, it was 39.8 to 39.5, very similar though. And 19 described themselves as independents. All right. So it's a huge, huge poll. We don't really need to go with the rest of it. 18% were contacted over cell phone, 14% with landlines. It's not a bad split. We're probably going to be 80-20 with the Iowa poll. Something like that. It may even be more. It probably will be 85, maybe, between 80-20 and 85-15. Not the criminal charges. Third parties hurt Biden at this point. We did not have this massive split with by the way, RFK is on one ballot right now. I'm starting to get concerned he's not going to get on the other ones. I'm serious. Not concerned. I mean, you know what I mean. Like Jill Stein will get on these ballots. She has an organization behind her. I'm just wondering whether or not we're polling somebody who ultimately is not going to get on the ballot. They're not even targeting the states where they have a better chance to get on the ballot. It's crazy, Lord. I don't understand it. Jill Stein will be on the ballot now in Arizona. That's a huge deal. And Arizona is probably the second hardest of all the battleground states to get on, and the Green Party did it. It's bad for Joe Biden. But I'm not sold that Kennedy is bad for him in states like Michigan. This one had an 11-point lead, I believe. When we added all these other third-party people to the mix, we just simply didn't see that huge of a change. So, what is it? Let me go. Trump versus Biden. Trump led by, again, 4.7. Biden versus Trump versus Kennedy, it was 4.8. I mean, it's just not that big of a deal. It really isn't. And then with Stein, West, it was 3 on the nose. So actually, we found it a little different. I'm a little bit, I don't know. I'm not suspicious of them. I'm skeptical. Skeptical that in the head-to-head, Trump beats Biden by 8, but the margin expands when other third-party candidates are included. I'm just a little bit skeptical about that. This I want to make note of. Seth Levy is right. Everyone knows about the charges at this point. This is a highly, highly charged question. More than 58% of voters said a Trump criminal conviction would have no influence on their vote, while 28% said it would make them less likely to vote for him. All right, that's all voters. The state of Michigan, the state of Ohio, the state of Pennsylvania, these attitudinally still tough and rough, they don't give a damn about Trump's bogus BS charges. They don't care. I'm sick of pollsters doing this. It's very dishonest, and they know it. It is a bias-tainting question. Presidential elections are A/B tests. You're going to vote for the guy who's being accused of being bought off by the Chinese, or you're going to vote for the guy who's got 91 criminal indictments because the guy who got bought off by the Chinese is indicting him. Come on. I mean, everyone from both sides can make their arguments, their fair share of arguments. They are A/B tests. And I think that gentleman they polled said it best. That's the voter who will decide the election. He knows all about Trump's legal problems. He wouldn't care if Chuckin read a statement that said Donald Trump had been found guilty of some stupid-ass crime in D.C., which he would then appeal anyway. He's not going to care about that. You heard the man. It's nonsense. And the reason why I bring up Seth is because he's on Twitter yesterday. He's like, no, but everybody knows. Nobody, and yet he's leading by 8 points. Nobody's going to care. Kyle Condit from the University of Virginia Center for Politics, he started to stumble on it. And then because all of his followers are all left-wing, right? Then that's one of the reasons why I even got into this business, because I could tell that the University of Virginia Center for Politics, which used to come across rather objective and, fair, became very obvious that they were leaning left and leaning establishmentarian. And then I could see it seeping into their model ranking decisions. And it was very, very, very obvious to me. But in any event, he stumbled across the right answer once. And he said, I don't really believe these polls. Trump looked like he was going to be annihilated after that Billy Bush tape came out. And the man displays an enormous propensity to bounce back. And we may see a temporary dip in his polling numbers, but by the time election day comes, I just don't think an indictment would do it. He got all this blowback. That's ridiculous. It's a felony. Heck, nobody cares. It's a bias-injecting question, and the fact of the matter now remains, we're likely not getting a trial before the election, let alone a conviction. Fani Willis, by the way, who had the most chance after the decisions in the D.C. court, she's in big trouble. She's banging the dude she paid to go after Trump. Listen, people were like, Rich, I got calls. Rich, don't spread rumors about Fani Willis, because they heard me say that, Fani will do more with her Fanny than you think. You can get out of trouble with Fani real quick if you're willing to, Fanny with Fanny, And people are like, don't say that. Dude, just, And I'm like, everybody knows. Everybody knows. It's an open secret. Open secret. What I didn't know was that she was having an inappropriate sexual relationship with the man she then paid $600,000 to prosecute Donald Trump. Holy crap. She could be in some serious trouble. And Brian Kemp, you idiot. Turns out that state senator was right all along. He said to investigate it. You would have known about this if you would have listened to him. Instead, they expelled him from the Republican Party because Brian Kemp told them to. This is why nobody likes Republicans. This is why nobody votes for Republicans. They're not going to go out there, bend over backwards, and vote for a bunch of spineless, coward crooks. They're just not going to do it. If you were what you said you were, then you'd be the majority party. It's very clearly still a center-right country. But you're not. You're not. Because you don't know what center-right means anymore. You're still in like 1980. Only worse. But then again, the very same people are the ones who did Ronald Reagan in, folks. They're the ones who betrayed Ronald Reagan all the time. And by the way, Mike Cernovich, I'm with you 100% on John McCain. I don't give a damn where the man served. I don't care how many years he spent in the Hanoi Hilton as a POW. I don't care. That doesn't give you a license to be a crooked scumbag for the rest of your life. Right from the very beginning. Real estate bribes. The ultimate betrayal to voters. I'm going to be dead soon anyway, so who cares? I've been telling voters for 7 years that I'm going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Now that I actually can do it, I'm going to vote against it and screw my voters over just to make myself, my petty little crooked self, scumbag self, feel better because Donald Trump won the presidency and I was soundly rejected by the American. Let's get real. This is the real reason, Laura, that Mitt Romney and when John McCain was alive, they're jealous.
Preach it.
Jealous. That's right, Roro. Jealous. They were completely destroyed. The American people said, I see you. I don't like you. I'm voting for the other guy. That hurts. They were jealous, Roro. I hear you loud and clear, buddy. They're jealous. Listen, my buddy, it's right, he's a friend. He's in charge. We're talking about a seriously credentialed guy. He's in charge of an entire region of mental health for veterans. He told me, he's like, obviously I've never examined Senator McCain, but there has to be something seriously mentally wrong with a person who knows he's about to die, betrays everything he said he ever believed in, and then leaves the comfort and the precious time he has left with his family to do all of that. There's something wrong with him. He's a sick, narcissistic son of a vindictive scumbag. There's something very wrong in that brain, and it ain't because he's old and about to die. He's a dirtbag, a narcissist, but in an evil way. Like he would screw over his own mama. Of course he would. Kelly Ward would have beaten him until he ran those ads about securing the border and repealing and replacing Obamacare. He screwed voters on both just because he was jealous of Donald Trump. That is a scumbag. Right, Spy? Listen, he's a mental health professional, so he was like saying it from like a mental health professional's point of view. Like there's something wrong and broken with his brain, right? But, you and I probably have very similar views, it sounds like. And I'm saying there's something stained on that man's soul. If I was in that position, the only way I'm getting up to leave and to sacrifice the remaining little time that I have had with my family before I go to the spirit of the sky, baby, is to do something good for the people that entrusted me to serve them for so many years. And instead, he doesn't. He screws. His final living act is to screw them. Why? Because he's jealous and vindictive. He's a scumbag. He's a dirtbag. So don't keep throwing up the Hanoi Hilton crap. Cernovich is 100% correct. It doesn't give you a license to be a piece of shit for the rest of your life, which he no longer has now. How many people would have given back? I mean, what would you give to have that time back with your family now that you don't have any more? Time is the most precious commodity we have, folks. It's a big deal. And to waste it, because makes me sick. Really makes me sick. All right. So listen, Newsom beats Trump beats Newsom by 5 points in this poll. Let me just get this. It's already 156. Trump beats Newsom by 5 points. And Whitmer leads by 4. She is the governor of that state. While governors usually do not have any impact off of preference, it does matter when it comes to if you're popular in your own state, you could have an advantage. It's possible. But in a battleground state, something that's going to be close. Ultimately, she's never been on the national stage and she's not tested. So Whitmer is what I think would be one of the stronger candidates for the Democrats in the future. And unfortunately, what they're suffering from now is a lack of a bench. And that's because they unnatural. It wasn't organic. They stifled the natural and organic competition of their party in 2020. And when they rigged their primary for a second time, this time there was a lot more talent in 2020. And when they rigged that primary and stifled that talent, they destroyed their presidential bench. So now they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do. Shapiro is also a promising political figure. After what he did with the statue of William Penn, it tells you he's a shrewd dude. He's a Democrat. He doesn't give a damn about the statue of William Penn. But he knew that would be really bad. And when you got people like Ray Texera, the emerging Democratic majority, going, no, stop doing this. This is why you're losing. This is why people think you're crazy. Because you are. And only people like Shapiro listen. But how would Shapiro and Whitmer fare in a national stage? I don't think Newsom has done very well on a national stage at all, and everybody was terrified of him. Trump will bludgeon Newsom. It would be ugly. Shapiro, I'm not sure either. I don't know what his skills would be on a national. And there is a Jewish element to it. I'm sorry, I got to bring this up. He's a Jewish governor, a Jewish politician. Democrats, and I saw the comment before, you're right, don't be afraid to say that. Democrats in states like Michigan rely on a very anti-Semitic vote to win. Not only Michigan. Sorry. How would they feel about Shapiro? I don't know. What do you think? Yeah. Biden's having his own problems already. And he's ordering Blinken to go out. And he did. And chastise Israel. Why? Because he knows he cannot win a state like Michigan. He will lose Michigan to Trump without a very significant turnout. And somebody said something incredibly stupid the other day on Twitter. Like, oh, Muslims are only a couple % of the population in Michigan. And I forgot who that guy is who responded to him. And I'm thinking to myself, do they not know how to count? There are 130,000 Muslims. I think. Something like 100,000 Muslims at least in Michigan. Joe, it was almost Muslim voters are almost nearly Joe Biden's entire margin in the state of Michigan. All he needs is them to boycott him and a tiny shift. Tiny little fraction of a shift in either the white or black vote, and it's over. It's a stupid comment these people make. I really think that I should stress again to stop talking about like statistics and election modeling if you cannot if you're not good at basic arithmetic. Okay. Special thank you for our friends at Field of Greens. Again, folks, if you had resolved to eat healthier this year, or are you setting a goal and actually doing is the hard part. All right. Field of Greens is mine and Laura's superfruit and vegetable habit. It's got to be a habit. It's the only way it works. And not it's the only way dieting like this works at all. And I don't mean dieting as in losing weight. If that's what you want to do, it'll certainly help. But I mean making sure your body is getting the appropriate amount of nutrients and other things that you need. Again, some of the ingredients that these doctors selected were for heart, to support your heart, your lungs, your kidneys. But for me, a big deal is that it does help me with my metabolism, which is obviously for energy but healthy energy and weight loss. Everyone's different. But I'll tell you, for me, one of the benefits of Field of Greens, which I saw immediately, not everybody, but for me and my kids, we feel, and I don't know, Laura, do you? But I think you do, right? I feel like an immediate increase in energy after drinking Field of Greens.
Mm-hmm.
Like an immediate, but it's not bad. Like you drank 5 hours.
Yeah, it's not like a caffeine boost or like taking a shot of like
5 hour power.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah,
And
it's not that.
it's a normal, like, you feel refreshed kind of ordeal, like, hey, I'm still alive. I didn't know.
Right.
Instead
Well, I
of
got
like
you guys.
chugging 2 shots of espresso. And
Well, I
yeah.
got you guys 15% off your first order and free rush shipping. And if you go to fieldofgreens.com, link is in the description. Fieldofgreens.com, use the promo code TPP. That's the People's Pundit at checkout. Again, fieldofgreens.com, use the promo code TPP. And also, as always, a special thanks to Jammin Bean, our friends at Jammin Bean, our patriots and friends and patriots at Jammin Bean. And that's, of course, also in the description. jamminbean.com, promo code TPP40. Locals, keep your eye to locals. I'll give you some more tidbits about what I see in Iowa. Again, expect there to be somebody who does better than expected and somebody who does worse than expected. But what I don't expect is Donald Trump to lose the Iowa caucuses. That we're really playing with delusion now. Okay. I mean, this is not particularly close. I also want to, yes, you just got it. I also want to thank our very special guest, the executive director of streethopetn.org. Guys, even if it's like she said, just to pray, that this is this organization is just doing God's work. All right. So even if it's just to pray, like April said, and it's April Timco, by the way, I would also stress that you guys go to the website first, learn and educate yourself more about it. They do have some great stuff on the website, resources, but you could take it a step further and learn about it. It is increased, awareness. I'm going to bring it up tomorrow too. Oh no, right. We had to do it today because I thought that's right. But tomorrow is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. The entire month of January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So make yourself aware.
They're not state funded. So
that's right. Remember, if you're looking for someone to support, there's nobody better, nobody more deserving. I mean, Laura and I, like I said, we have a soft spot for kids, and it's just unbelievable that we don't have resources. Right. Like everybody says, well, let's get the kids back. Let's stop them from being trafficked. Let's, and the truth is we don't find as many as we should. And it's sad. That's just the reality. It's a tough reality to accept. But those that we do, we got that. We can celebrate that and we need to celebrate that. But there has to be a plan to get them back when you get them back. I'm just stunned that there is not. So thank the Lord for April Timco and her entire team over there and what they do at the Garland Oaks. It's incredible. All right. So check them out. streethopetn.org. And we're gonna roll. All right.
We have to go, guys.
Oh, Jack. Yep.
Jack, Human Events. Tune in.
Human Events right now. None but love for you guys. See you later.